welcome back to Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank. You know, it's interesting. I was cruising Facebook right now, and Steve Skojak of 1 Peter 5 put up a post where it showed an ad in the midst of this Pride Month here in America, or modern civilization here, of how the fast food chain Chipotle was advertising using the imagery of transgenderism. And Steve's shocked. He doesn't understand, according to his comment, exactly how, why Chipotle, this, major chain across the country, would use such a divisive issue when it comes to transgenderism and sexual license, right? In Steve's mind, from what I take, this is an issue that has not been settled by the broader culture, and he believes this is divisive, as so many Americans are against the issue of transgenderism. And listen, this is nothing against Steve whatsoever. I like his site. I think he writes some good stuff there. He's pointed out some things, resources that I've used for our own blogs here, frankly speaking, and over at the Knights of Christendom. And but I am shocked that, in the sense that, with Steve, he's playing the game that classical liberals are playing, right? And that is that America is still a conservative nation, or at least on this issue here, it's not quite been settled yet. It's dividing people, as there's, I guess, some opposition to sort of the normalization of the transgender issue. And that's fine. I think there may be pockets of the country that still oppose this thing, and I understand it. But I got to be honest with you guys. I was just in Vegas this weekend, and it's the new normal in Vegas. The transgender issue is plastered all over the place, man. As soon as we walked into the hotel room, actually before we got to the hotel room, it's the billboards, the bumper stickers. We walked into the hotel room, the magazine, the complimentary magazine for local stuff that the hotels give you in Vegas now. I had transgenders on the cover. The lead story on national news that morning, CBS or ABC in Las Vegas, was a story of an LGBT transgender ball or prom, the first of its kind. We saw people of the transgender community walking around ordinary daylight everywhere you turned. Obviously, the Strip is a whole nother thing in itself. It's plastered all over the Strip. We generally don't go to the Strip. We did this time because we made a wrong turn. We cut off at the wrong exit, went east instead of west. And we wound up on the Strip for halfway through it, part of it, and it's plastered all over the place. I just don't know how this transgender issue is even a divisive issue anymore. I don't know how classical liberals or even traditionalists think that way. It's all over our civilization now. I mean, listen, we canceled television a long time ago. We just don't want the crap and the crud coming into the house with the kids and things like that. But we still do subscribe to Hulu, which I don't know why I do. I don't watch it hardly ever. But the few times that I have watched Hulu, every commercial, every television show now has transgenderism plastered all over it. Every commercial, or I won't say every commercial, but at least 50% of them now. Every television show now has transgender or LGBT stuff. This thing is plastered all over the place. And you could say to me, well, this is Hollywood and things like that. It's a minority, but it's everywhere. This is the new normal in America. I'm sorry. It's not a divisive issue anymore. And the reason why it's not a divisive issue anymore is because there is no fight. It was the classical liberals. It was the conservative right and the libertarians that told us 10, 20, 30 years ago, well, we've lost the culture war. Let's just focus on economics, right? That's what they told us. That's when I started to leave the conservative movement, to be honest with you, right? And here's the little kicker. Here's the little kicker, right? The moment you don't fight it anymore, I don't care what percentage of population actually believes in it as a virtue, you've already lost. It's not a divisive issue anymore because you're not fighting against it anymore. That's part of the issue here, guys. This transgenderism stuff, Pride Month, this is America, Jack. And you ain't too far gone to see that yet. It's an old saying from an old movie. I'm sorry, guys. This bastion of conservative America, it's over. It's done. We've all capitulated to our fallen nature. We've all capitulated towards sin. The classical liberal civilization rebelled against eternal truth. It rebelled against the church. It rebelled against the sacraments. It rebelled against proper and just authority. And surprise, surprise, we've been going down the crap hole since what? The founding fathers took over this thing and gave us these secular liberties of sorts. What do you expect now? I mean, throughout my entire lifetime, we've been going down the path of sexual license without any pushback at all. It's been pushed in Hollywood and music and magazines and television. Pornography is at our fingertips for anybody at any given moment. There's nobody. I mean, when I was growing up, right, you wanted a porn magazine, you had to go to the liquor store, right? You wore a mask, you wore some sunglasses because you were ashamed and embarrassed. And even then, you had to be, 18 years old? You had to show an ID. There's none of that anymore. We got a generation of boys and even girls now growing up addicted to porn because there is no filter. There is nobody to check an ID anymore. Never mind the fact that pornography and all this sexual license affects everybody, even over the age of 18. I understand the nature of protecting children. That's important. But pornography just doesn't adversely affect children. It adversely affects everybody, even those over the age of 18. Listen, I was in Vegas this weekend, right? Just like I said earlier. And I got to be honest with you. I've never been to Amsterdam. I've watched a few documentaries on Amsterdam in the Netherlands, right? I don't know what the difference between Vegas and Amsterdam is at this point, right? You got your strip clubs, you got your porn shops, you got your prostitution, you got your pride and transgender stuff all over the place. I mean, literally, it's Sin City, right? On top of all that, the gambling stuff and things of that nature, right? I don't understand what the difference. I think the only difference is that you have what? I think you have prostitution legal within the city of Amsterdam, and in Vegas, you got to go outside the city to get your prostitution. So, like, when you're walking around Amsterdam, you could, look at the women behind the glass door or the glass case, kind of like window shopping, to kind of choose the prostitute you want. The prostitute that enamors you, you get to pick it right there, where you got to go outside the city limits in Vegas, right? Is that really the only difference? Because I can't tell. And what is it about these Calvinist nations, right? These puritanical Calvinist nations that always turn into this moral debauchery in the end, right? America being a puritanical Calvinist nation from its origins, just like what? Just like the Netherlands, right? And really, America is catching up in moral degradation in regards to all this sexual license, right? I mean, at least in the Catholic nations, you still have some pushback. Granted, the Masons have gone in there, done their damage to destroy everybody's passions. But look at the Calvinist nations. What is it about them that lends them to sexual license like this? Complete moral depravity at every level. I don't know. You guys in the political right that say this is a divisive issue, I don't know what you're smoking. I don't know what America you're living in. Maybe you've isolated yourself so much in the little pockets in the Midwest that you live in, but you go to the cities, this stuff is plastered all over the place. This is the new normal in America. Accept it. Accept it. And you guys on the right never wanted to fight against it. You guys just said economic issues. I need my money. America. Money, 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 right? That's all we do as Americans. We focus on the natural. We shift the supernatural off to the private realm, private moral codes, religious liberty. You do you, I do me, and as long as we don't cross each other's property lines, we don't shoot each other, right? Well, this is what we've done for 250 years. You think it's an accident that we have watched progressively the nation become more, I guess, insidious in regards to sexual license? And if we're willing to be honest, we go all the way back to at least the 1920s. Right? I would argue actually go back to the Founding Fathers. The Founding Fathers had their sexual proclivities, if you want to call it that. Okay? So when they enshrined the concept of secular liberty in the Constitution, it fit into the framework of those sexual proclivities. Now, Americans don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about that, right? Because they're saints. I understand that. But if we're honest, we can see at the very least since the 1920s, a natural progression of sexual license sort of taking the next step in America, taking the next step, right? 1920s, it's contraception, and you got the gay 20s, everybody's partying, things like that, right? Then we go through a couple of chastisements, right? You got World War I, World War II, things kind of slow down, because when mankind is chastised by God, right? We all go back to God. But when peace comes and prosperity comes, we go back to our ways of sinning, starting with sexual license, right? We go through the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and sexual license becomes worse and worse and worse and worse. And with sexual license comes the next step of extremism, right? Whether it's, watching Three's Company and watching Shacking Up Out of Wedlock. And then in the 90s, we get to Murphy Brown and single women raising children, that becoming acceptable to where virginity is not even a value anymore. By the time we get to the late 90s and early 2000s, the hookup culture, right? That's what we have in the 2000s, homosexuality, things like that, disordered life, whatever you have. Now it's transgenderism. Pretty soon it's going to be kids. It'll be another extreme coming down the pipe. And where is sort of the moral pushback against this? And who's supposed to sort of push back against these moral principles at this point in time, right? Stupid ideas like Dennis Prager make the Bible the book of America again, which is the most idiotic ideas. The Bible alone, sola scriptura, is the reason why we're here, ladies and gentlemen. It's because the Bible has been used as a divisive issue. The Bible's been a divisive issue to divide the body of Christ from the church. The Bible is a good tool when it's properly applied. But Protestantism began this stuff. Oh, that's not to mention that Luther and King Henry, who started the divide from the church, started because they had their own issues with sexual license, ironically enough, right? Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Everything the West has become has started with sins below the belt. And now we got this grandiose idea, this grandiose libertarianism in America that's supposed to be fiscal prosperity back, but give us all of our sexual license. And somehow that's acceptable within conservative ranks in America, right? Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me? Now you want to pretend that this is a divisive issue? This is America. This is what America has become. I don't understand. Listen, I don't know what the difference between Las Vegas and Amsterdam is. I was there this weekend. Now, I've never been to Amsterdam, like I said before, but I don't know what the difference is. How do you get this genie back in the bottle? Go to the polls and vote harder? Vote for the next Republican? What are you guys smoking at this point? America is a moral cesspool falling into the ash heaps of history. That's what America is. And all because we've embraced these false enlightenment principles of freedom, liberty, and kicking Jesus Christ and the social kingship of Christ to the sidelines. How much more evidence do you need, huh? Vote harder, vote harder, vote harder. Let me tell you guys something right now. We're not going to vote ourselves out of this moral depravity. We're not. And to simply say, well, strong economies lead to strong families. Where's the evidence for that? Supposedly, according to conservative right, this is the most prosperous nation in the history of the world. And yet it has coincided with the greatest moral collapse in the history of the world. You guys want to take credit where you guys believe you have some credibility, but why don't you take the blame? When in the same time span, you've lost the culture, the family, and the country looks like a moral shithole, to be honest with you. What's the answer here, conservatives, right? The next scandal watching, we're going to get Joe Biden out, and then we're going to win the White House, and then we're going to win the Senate. Stop it. Stop it. Democracy is why we're here. All this stuff, all this moral depravity is brought to us by you saying that the vote is the answer. It's not. It's finding the faith. Our Lady warned us 100 years ago, and you guys continue to ignore her. What is wrong with you guys? I'm done.